All right, ready to unpack this research paper you've been wanting to get a handle on. It's called Sequence-to-Sequence Learning with Neural Networks, authored by Ilya Sutskever, Oriol Vinyals, and Kwok V. Lay. I'll try to make it clear for everyone today.
It's a really cool paper, actually. It kind of changed how we think about AI and language, like a lot.
So the paper dives into this problem with deep neural networks. DNNs, they were good at things like image recognition, but they struggled with sequences. And language is all about sequences. The order matters. Makes sense.
Totally, yeah. Imagine you're trying to put like a really long object on one of those conveyor belts, like the ones meant for, like boxes.
Yeah.
It's like that. That's kind of what it was like trying to make the old DNNs handle different sentence lengths. It's the meaning gets all jumbled up if the words are out of order.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so how does the paper tackle this? They use something called LSTM networks, long short-term memory. So is that like giving the network a better memory?
Well, it's more than just memory. Think of it like this. If a regular DNN reads a sentence one word at a time, and it's like forgetting what came before, and LSTM reads and remembers the whole thing as it goes, it's like it understands the context,
Gotcha. So how did they actually use this LSTM to solve the sequence-to-sequence problem? Like practically how?
Well, they use two LSTMs together. One's like the encoder, it reads the input sequence, so like a sentence, and squeezes all that info into one fixed size vector, like all the meanings like concentrated into this thing.
Okay, it's taking this messy sentence, making it simple. What next?
That's where the second LSTM comes in. This one's the decoder. It takes that meaning juice from the encoder and then, uses it to generate the output sequence, like translating into another language,
One understands, one translates. Makes sense. This is where things get pretty wild. The researchers found that reversing the order of the words in the input actually made the model better. What?
Yeah.
Why would that work?
It does seem a little weird, right? Think about it like a puzzle, though. If you put the pieces closer to where they fit in the big picture, it's way easier to see how they go together. By reversing the input, words that are related, like in meaning, they end up closer together, it makes it easier for the network to figure out the relationships.
Like giving the network hints, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
So did it work? Like how well did their model actually perform?
It crushed the old approaches. This LSTM-based model beat a standard statistical machine translation system. And it was for English-to-French translation. Even crazier, it did this with a much smaller vocabulary.
Wow, that is a big deal. It shows how powerful this new approach is.
For sure, yeah. It was a big moment. It kind of proved that neural networks could be even better than the existing methods in machine translation. And, it opened up so many possibilities for how we think about understanding language.
The paper mentions this thing called sentence representation. What's that about?
This is where it gets super interesting. So the model learned to represent sentences as those fixed-size vectors. The crazy thing is that sentences with similar meanings ended up with similar vectors. It's like the model wasn't just memorizing words, it was learning the meaning of the sentence.
So it's going past just recognizing individual words and getting the whole sentence, the ideas.
Exactly. And that opens up so many possibilities. Think about search engines. Instead of just matching keywords, they could get what you're actually looking for.
Wow, that would be incredible.
Huh.
Are there any other applications for this sentence representation thing?
Think about chatbots, ones that could actually have, meaningful conversations, not just respond to like pre-programmed stuff.
Right.
Or like learning systems, personalized ones that could adapt to how you understand things. The possibilities are kind of crazy.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy how much progress came from that one paper. But let's zoom in for a second. The researchers, they didn't just throw LSTMs at the problem and call it a day, They put a lot of thought into getting the model to work its best, tweaking things here and there.
Right. Training a massive neural network's one thing, but making it sing, making it really work well, that's another challenge, right? What kind of tricks did they use to make it better?
One important thing they found was how long the sentences were. So when you train a network, you usually feed it data in these batches, right? It's like giving it small bites of information to digest.
Yeah, that makes sense. But sentences can be all sorts of lengths. Short ones, long, complicated ones. Exactly. And what they found was if you have super short sentences and really long ones all mixed up in the same batch, it wasn't very efficient for the training. Kind of like when you're packing a suitcase, Yeah, all these tiny things and a couple huge ones, you end up wasting space.
Okay, I get the suitcase analogy. So how do they fix this packing problem?
They got smart about it. Put sentences of similar lengths together in batches. That way the calculations could be optimized for sentences that were roughly the same size, made the whole training process smoother, faster.
Like organizing your suitcase.
Yeah.
Makes sense. So, any other big ideas that came out of this research? Like, what were they thinking beyond the technical stuff?
One thing they really stressed was finding the right problem encoding.
Hang on, what exactly is problem encoding when we talk about AI and language?
It's all about how you present the information to the neural network. Remember we talked about reversing the order of the words in the input? That weird trick actually made things better.
Yeah, that was surprising, but it worked.
It did, and it shows what I mean by finding a better problem encoding. By flipping the input, they made the relationships between words clearer to the network. It was like maximizing those short-term dependencies-related words closer together. It could learn much faster that way.
Like giving the AI a map, showing it the connection. So it's not just the algorithm, it's how you feed it the information.
Exactly. It's a big principle, for all sorts of machine learning, not just language.
Garbage in, garbage out, right? This paper really showed what neural networks could do for language, like understanding it, even playing with it. What do you think the long-term impact will be? It seems like it opened up a lot of new doors.
Oh, for sure. I think it's safe to say this paper was a game changer for natural language processing, It paved the way for everything we're seeing now in machine translation, chatbots, voice assistants, all of it.
It's kind of wild to think how much of the tech we use every day came from this research.
And we're just getting started. Researchers are still using these ideas, building on them, coming up with even more powerful models and techniques. The future of AI and language, it's pretty exciting.
Where do you see it having the biggest impact going forward? Like, what are you most excited about?
One area I think has huge potential, and I've mentioned this before, is personalized medicine. Imagine, an AI that looks at your medical history, genetics, lifestyle, everything, and tells you if you're at risk for certain diseases and recommends treatments just for you.
That sounds straight out of science fiction. Is that really possible?
Maybe it seemed like that a few years ago, but with how fast deep learning is advancing, it's becoming more and more realistic. LSTMs, they're great at handling tons of data and finding those complex relationships. They're perfect for this kind of analysis.
It'd be like having an AI doctor that knows you better than you know yourself.
Right. And it's not just about predicting diseases. Imagine AIs that are always watching your health, giving you tips on your diet and exercise, even spotting signs of sickness before you even feel bad.
That would completely change healthcare. We're talking about personalized care, preventing things before they happen.
It's a powerful idea, and it's getting closer and closer.
We've talked a lot about LSTMs. Are they the only option for these sequence-to-sequence tasks? Anything else you're excited about in terms of neural networks?
Oh, there's always something new, right? One architecture that's been making a lot of noise lately is the transformer network.
Okay, transformers, I've heard that name. What makes them different from LSTMs?
So LSTMs go through a sequence one piece at a time, word by word in a sentence. Transformers, on the other hand, they can process the whole sequence all at once, seeing the entire picture, not just individual pieces. This makes them way faster for training, and they can handle even longer sequences than LSTMs.
So they get the big picture without getting stuck on the details.
Exactly. And that's led to some really impressive stuff in natural language processing.
Like what? Give me an example.
One of the coolest is a language model called GPT-3. It stands for Generative Pre-trained Transformer 3. It's this huge transformer network trained on a massive data set of text and code. It can write all kinds of creative stuff like answer your questions, even translate languages.
GPT-3, right, the one that's been writing poetry and code. Sounds like transformers are the next big thing in AI.
They're definitely having a big impact, but it's not like one is better than the other. LSTMs are still super useful, especially when you need to understand those long-range dependencies, like in speech recognition.
So different tools for different jobs.
Yep. And some researchers are even trying to combine them, get the best of both worlds.
That's cool. It seems like the field is always moving, always pushing the limits.
That's the fun part. And it's exciting to see where it'll take us. We're still figuring out the real potential of this stuff.
This deep dive has been really eye-opening. We've gone from the basics of LSTMs to these futuristic applications. But let's go back to sentence representation for a second. The model can turn a sentence into a fixed-size vector, and these vectors, they can capture the meaning of the sentence. What can we actually do with that in real life?
That's a great question. One area where sentence representation has a lot of potential is in information retrieval. Imagine a search engine that actually understands what you mean when you type a query, not just matching keywords.
That would be so much better than the keyword searches we use now.
Totally. If the search engine could represent your query and the documents as vectors, it could find the most relevant results, even if they don't have the exact words you typed.
So it's about understanding the meaning, the intent, not just matching words.
Right. It's called semantic search, and sentence representation is making it much more possible.
Any other cool applications for sentence representation?
Definitely. Question answering systems. Imagine a system that can understand a question you ask in plain English and then search through a ton of text to find the answer that actually addresses your question.
That would be so helpful. I spend way too much time searching for answers online.
Right. By representing both the question and the possible answers as vectors, the system could find the best semantic match, even if the words are different. It's like having an AI research assistant that gets you the knowledge you need.
It's wild how these ideas from the paper are becoming real things that could change how we find information.
It really shows you how powerful this research is. We've come so far from just matching words to actually understanding what they mean.
This has been an amazing journey. We've covered so much, and I feel like we're just scratching the surface of this paper's impact. What else can we learn from it about how AI and natural language processing are evolving?
One really cool thing is how this paper launched a ton of new research on neural machine translation. It basically shifted the whole field away from the old statistical methods and towards these new, more powerful neural network approaches.
So this was like a technological revolution, not just a scientific discovery. What were some of the big advancements that came out of that shift?
One of the most important was the development of attention mechanisms, which we talked about before. This lets the model focus on the most important parts of the input when it's creating the output, making the translation way better.
So it's like the AI is learning to pay attention, just like a human translator would.
Exactly. And attention mechanisms have become super important for modern neural machine translation, leading to translations that are more fluent, more accurate, and sound more natural.
It's amazing how these little changes can make such a big difference.
It just shows how smart these researchers are, always trying to improve things. And it's not just about attention. We're also seeing progress in data augmentation, where they're finding ways to create more training data from the data they already have, making the models more accurate and robust.
This is about using algorithms in new ways and being creative with data.
Exactly. That's what makes AI so cool. It's all about bringing together different ideas, the theory, the practice, and this drive to make machines that can really understand and use language like we do.
This deep dive has been so insightful. We've gone from LSTMs to the cutting edge of neural machine translation. We've seen how these models can understand meaning, work with long sequences, and even create human-quality text. What's next?
You know, one question that always comes up is about the researchers themselves. What happened to the brilliant minds behind this paper? Did it change their careers?
It's kind of crazy to think that one paper could launch their whole careers.
Oh yeah, it definitely did. All three of them became like huge names in AI. Ilya Sutskever, for example, he's the chief scientist at OpenAI now. You know, OpenAI, one of the top AI research labs in the world.
Wow, that's got to be exciting. He's working on some seriously cutting-edge stuff.
He is. And Oriol Vinyals, he's a principal research scientist over at Google DeepMind, another big name in AI. He's been working on AI systems that can actually play games like Go and StarCraft, and they play at a superhuman level. It's insane.
So they're not just sticking to language, they're tackling all kinds of AI challenges.
Exactly. And then there's Kwok V. Lei. He's a principal scientist at Google working on some really advanced machine learning stuff like convolutional neural networks, you know, the ones used in image recognition and stuff.
It's amazing to think about how much these three researchers have shaped AI. Like from language processing to game AI to these powerful algorithms, really inspiring stuff.
Yeah, it is. And it all started with this one paper, you know, the one that showed everyone how powerful neural networks could be for sequence-to-sequence learning.
This deep dive has been really eye-opening, taking us from the nuts and bolts of LSTMs to all these amazing applications. But I want to go back to something we touched on earlier, sentence representation. The idea that the model can, turn a sentence into a vector. And that vector actually captures the meaning of the sentence. What can we really do with that out in the real world?
Oh, that's a great question. One area where sentence representation has a lot of potential is, information retrieval. Imagine a search engine that actually understands what you mean, not just the keywords you type.
That would be so much better than what we have now.
Right. If a search engine could represent your query and all the documents in its database as vectors, it could find the most relevant results even if they don't use the exact same words you typed.
So it's getting to the heart of what you're looking for, not just matching words.
Exactly. It's called semantic search. Sentence representation is making it a reality.
Any other interesting ways we can use sentence representation?
Yeah, totally. Question answering systems. Imagine a system that gets what you're asking in normal English and then searches through tons of text to find the answer that actually fits your question.
That would be so useful. Think about all the time we spend looking for answers online.
Right. If we could represent both the question and the possible answers as vectors, the system could find the best match, even if the wording is different. It's like having a super smart AI research assistant.
It's amazing how these ideas from the paper are becoming real tools that could change how we interact with information.
It shows you how important this research really is. We've gone from simply matching words to actually understanding what they mean.
This whole deep dive has been fascinating. We've covered so much ground, and I feel like we're just starting to understand the impact of this paper. What else can we take away from it about how AI and natural language processing are changing?
Well, one really cool thing is how this paper led to a whole bunch of research on neural machine translation. It basically moved the whole field away from those old statistical methods and towards these, the new, more powerful neural network approaches.
So it was a huge shift in the technology, not just a new scientific discovery. What were some of the biggest changes that happened because of this?
Well, one of the most important was attention mechanisms. Remember we talked about those? It helps the model focus on the key parts of the input when it's making the output, so the translations are way better.
So the AI is learning to pay attention, kind of like a human translator does?
Exactly. And these attention mechanisms are now essential for modern neural machine translation, making translation smoother, more accurate, and sound more natural.
Crazy how small changes can make such a huge difference.
Yeah, it's amazing what these researchers can do. And it's not just attention either. We're seeing all sorts of progress in data augmentation too, finding ways to make more training data from the data they already have. This makes the models more accurate and robust.
So it's about being creative with algorithms and data.
Exactly. That's what makes AI so exciting. It's all these different ideas coming together, the theory, the practice, and this desire to create machines that can understand and use language like we can.
This deep dive has been incredible. We've gone from LSTMs to the cutting edge of neural machine translation, seen how these models understand meaning, work with long sequences, and even write human quality text. What's next for all this?
One question that always pops up is what about the researchers themselves? What happened to those brilliant minds behind the paper? Did it change their careers?
Yeah, I'm curious to hear what they've been up to since publishing this groundbreaking work.
Well, all three of them became rock stars in the AI world. Ilya Sutskever, for example, is now the chief scientist at OpenAI. OpenAI, one of the biggest, most influential AI labs out there.
Wow, he's at the forefront of AI innovation. That's amazing.
He is. And Oriol Vinyals, he's a principal research scientist at Google DeepMind, another powerhouse in AI research. He's been working on things like AI that can play games like Go and StarCraft at a level that's beyond human, showing just how powerful deep learning can be.
So they're not just focused on language anymore. They're pushing the boundaries of AI in all sorts of areas.
Exactly. And Kwok Vilay, he's a principal scientist at Google, working on some of the most advanced algorithms, like convolutional neural networks, which are used in image recognition and all sorts of other things.
It's incredible to see how these three people have changed the world of AI. Their work has impacted everything from natural language processing to game AI to, just the basic algorithms we use for machine learning. It's really inspiring stuff.
Yeah, it really is. And to think, it all started with that one paper, that showed the world what neural networks could do for, sequence-to-sequence learning.
This deep dive has been a wild ride, taking us through the evolution of AI. It feels like we're just getting started, though. What else is there to explore in this world of natural language processing and beyond?
Well, one area that's super interesting right now is the connection between language and vision. We're seeing amazing things happening with AI that can understand and create both text and images. Imagine something that can describe a picture perfectly, answer questions about a video, or even make realistic images from just a description you give it.
That is mind-blowing. It's like we're moving towards AI that can blend language and visuals just like we do.
We are, and that has big implications for everything from art and entertainment to education and scientific discoveries.
I'm excited to see where this all goes. But before we get too carried away thinking about the future, I want to take a second to appreciate the foundation this research laid for all these amazing advancements. It shows what humans can do, you know, and the incredible potential of AI.
It does. And it reminds us that even the toughest problems can be solved if we're creative, if we keep trying, and if we're willing to push the limits of what we know.
That's a great thought. I think it's time to wrap up this deep dive. We've gone from the nitty-gritty of LSTMs to the future of machine translation, the rise of transformers, and even the amazing careers of the researchers behind all of this. What final thoughts do you want to leave our listeners with as we close out our exploration?
I think the big takeaway here is that this paper, it was just the beginning. AI is constantly evolving. There are new discoveries and breakthroughs all the time. It's a really exciting field to follow, and I hope everyone keeps exploring, keeps learning, and keeps pushing those boundaries.
I couldn't agree more. Thanks for joining us on this incredible journey into the world of sequence-to-sequence learning.
It's been a pleasure exploring this with you. Until next time, keep learning, keep asking questions, and keep pushing those boundaries.